Welcome to the Morning Sanity Check, where we talk about the different pillars of resilience: spiritual, physical, social, and mental. Join us so we can talk about it, then be about it. Let the show begin.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another Sanity Check. My name is Seth.
And I'm Camille.
And we're here to make sure you are okay and everything is okay with you and that you're doing the right things to stay on the right page of things. Camille, how's everything?
Everything is good. This week has been busy as always. In retirement, you think that it slows down a little bit, but it picks up in other ways. But it's good. It's good.
That is true. It does. It does. And then it's almost like when you're going through it, you want it to be done already. Like,
Yes.
oh, am I done? Or am I just kind of done? You know,
Exactly.
like not going to work, but I'm still working. Yeah. So yeah, it is crazy. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. So I want you guys to share this, share. We're going to have a great show today. And it's a good day to be alive. I tell you that because we have so much information that's being thrown at us, and that information is we can internalize it to the point where we either have a choice. We always have a choice to believe it or research it. Sometimes individuals don't want to research, they just want to spew what someone else is saying without really seeing the validity in it. Like, is that even real? And then ask yourself, why am I even believing this? You know what I'm saying? What you think, Camille?
Absolutely. It's a lot of that. I know a lot of people, not just in today's climate, but good morning, Pink. But all the time in conversations, you'll see people that they have no background information on anything, didn't fact check, didn't research, but they hold dear to those beliefs that are untrue. Yeah. And sometimes we have to recognize that and we have to know how to let it go.
Got to. So before we get into the subject, y'all, I just want to say real quick, I don't know if you all have thought about or even took 2 minutes to watch Lovecraft Country. Okay, it is a trip. Okay, and it's on HBO. Not going to go into it. However, this goes in line with confirmation bias because there's a lot of truths in that movie or in this series that individuals don't necessarily want to talk about, but it's there. And I mean, it's there. Mm-hmm. You understand? So, but anyway, so talk to us a little bit about it, Camille, as far as confirmation bias.
All right. So confirmation bias, for those who don't know, is when you seek out information that supports what you already believe. And you really ignore any evidence or any facts or any information that contradicts what you believe. And so nobody likes to be wrong, right? Especially when you're going into certain conversations and discussions. I'll say not debates or arguments, but discussions. It's really, really important that you have the correct information. But a lot of people don't understand that they have confirmation bias or what it is. So it really occurs from influence on your desires and beliefs that you hold true to. A lot of times we grow up in families and, our parents taught us something or our religion taught us something or our environment taught us something. And so we just take that as gospel. And we say that this is truth. This is my truth. This is, how it is in the world, but it's not. It may be true for your one situation, but it's not true for the majority of other people. And so we take those ideals and concepts and views and good morning, Matthew. And we try to force people to believe what we believe without understanding that we have these biases and that it's very, very important to look at the other side.
Absolutely.
And, I've had a lot of conversations over the last couple of weeks about, on different topics dealing with whether it's politics or work or different neighborhoods and things like that. And my questions are always, tell me what you know, factual things about what you know. And I realized that people have not done the research.
No, they haven't done the research. And there's a lot of times individuals will say things as though it's true instead of saying, I feel this way. And this is where the vulnerability come in. I feel this way because of this experience. Yes. See, because if you don't want to, if you can't differentiate between a general statement and an isolated incident, you're going to create a false narrative, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely.
And then based off of how influential you can be and how, I guess, the numbers that you can grab, right? The fake statistics, it will almost sound believable. And then it can be believable to a whole group of people. Okay. And we talked a little bit about that. Now, you call them, it's like herd, right? It's the herd confirmation. Now, do you have information on that, little information on that as far as the herd confirmation? Well, what I have is social desirability. Okay. So you think about it. We hear things all the time. Some things we know is for sure enough not true. Okay. Deep down in our heart, we know it's not true. But because we're on a Facebook group or we're in a social gathering and majority of our friends, if you will, feel a certain way, we're just going to, I guess I'm going to go along with that. And why are you doing that? Come here, what you think about that?
You see it all the time, but I read people, so I'm looking and we have these discussions of this herd. So you'll have a bunch of people that may not have the same views as you. And so you'll look around and people are like, yeah. And you see people looking kind of confused, like I don't really believe it, but because these are my friends and this is my social circle and I don't want to be ostracized, I'm going to go along with it. And I see that sometimes and I'm like, okay, give me your thoughts. Why is it that you feel that way? What experiences have you had that, gave you this impression that this is how it is? And it's like, well, I mean, I don't really know. Because so-and-so told me, so you just going with the flow just because, you know what I mean? You just going with it because you don't want to, nobody wants to feel wrong.
And or left out.
Or left out, exactly.
People like the commune, people like the commune. So you don't want to be the oddball. I'll say, well, I don't like that. You see? But think about it. There's strength in that. There's strength in individuality. It's okay. For example, I don't know if you guys have seen, but on my Facebook profile, I have my old 1997 profile picture with me and dreadlocks. You think I give a damn what people thought then? You think I give a damn now? And people are like, oh, I never knew. Boy, you came a long way. Why? By cutting my hair? You see? Right. So you have individuals that will say, well, you're this way if you look this way. Mm-hmm. But we have to be cautious on how we perceive, well, I won't say perceive, but how we present ourselves. Right. Because sometimes we can create our own, reverse bias. You see, meaning this is not me, but I'm giving this off so that you can think that it's me. But then I don't want that negative response. What do you think about that, Camille?
That's your public image, how you want people to perceive you. Mm-hmm. And so we all have our core image, our public image, and then how we would want to see ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So that is, you can give off a misguided or untrue version of who you are by doing that, facade. So you do, yes, facade. It really is important that, you stay true. There's a lot of times where I'm the odd man out. I know that, the way that I think and process and how I do research is different than a lot of my peers or people in my not circles, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I had to just be, you guys hear the term all the time, you got to be uncomfortable or comfortable being uncomfortable. And so I often do stand out because I'm comfortable being uncomfortable, if it's going to challenge the status quo, if it's going to, and if it's right, no matter if I'm the majority or not, or the minority, if it's right, I will stand up and I will say, I don't agree. And like in the military, those conversations, you have to say, hey, Jennifer, you have to say, let's agree to disagree behind closed doors. But when I walk out of here, depending on where you are in your organization or in your groups or whatever, you have to go back and say, okay, I'm gonna walk out on the united front. I don't agree. I'm going to be quiet. That's my thing. I'm not going to say that I agree or promote whatever. I'm just going to be quiet. And then I'm just going to have people do whatever the mandate is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But
yes.
We know that we don't agree.
Absolutely.
You understand where I'm coming from.
And that's the key.
Right.
At least understand. You don't have to agree with it.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, we want to make sure that whoever it is that we are on different sides with, we know the relationship is still important. Just because a person, listen, I love pork and beans and hot dogs. Okay. Love it. Chopped up, little bit of sugar, just a little bit. Okay. But it's good. But I don't want you to be mad at me and my whole diet plan just because you can't convince me that pork and beans and hot dogs is wrong for me.
Right.
You get what I mean? So we have to watch what we do and how we come across. Just say, oh, well, look, that's not what I want to eat. I can get something else and we can eat together.
Right.
What are we doing together? You get what I mean? So it's a difference, but we have to monitor ourselves. But I do want to say good morning. I miss some folks.
Good morning.
Miss Anita, how you doing, ma'am? Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, Miss Jackie. How you doing, ma'am? Mona Love, how are you, ma'am? How are you? Jen, how are you? How are you, everyone? How's everybody? And yes, she says, good advice, Camille. Disagree, agreeable, right, for the United Front, depending on the mandate. Absolutely. And then even like in relationships, we can go at it, okay, in the house. But as soon as someone else comes in the house, in the space, you need to be together. Even if you don't agree, you go say, okay, if this is how we're going to go, I don't like the way you think, but I'm not going to show individuals when they come in that is hoes in it, because what happens is individuals can manipulate those hoes and put you against each other. Some individuals do that just for the thrill of it.
This is very true. Right.
And what you think about that?
That's very true. And sometimes it's hard, when you have points that you don't agree on, and you have people, and then you're trying to hold those feelings back without creating division or a perception of division, in your household, in your job, or whatever. So it takes some maturity. It takes a lot of practice. It takes really looking at, like you said, what's more important, the relationship or being right in this particular thing, or showing that we do have holes. A lot of people are like, oh, that's just, you being fake. No, it's not. It's not about being fake. It's about, making sure that we work certain things out. You get people on your side, then you can change their views and their perception about, what's really going on without telling them that, hey, I was wrong too. You know what I mean? And so you have to be careful of the information, like that private information that you give out to other people, because when we're in the heat of the moment, we cherry pick what we want to give, whether we know we're right or wrong. Cherry picking is another kind of very closely related to confirmation bias, where you take certain information that it could be true, or you might have some information about, but it may not be true for the whole situation. And even when it's untrue, you still do it because you don't care. It ain't gonna really affect you in the end anyway. So a lot of people do that when those things that are happening don't really affect them. They're unaffected by the bias. So you have to be careful that you don't cherry pick information as well. So you're absolutely right. It's not about that whole, what goes on in the house stays in the house. But, I tell my friends, when you're going up and down, don't tell me until you make a final decision. Don't be having my emotions all over. And then now I'm looking stupid because I done took a side and the side was wrong, So you have to be very careful about that concerning, even this. whether it's, like I said, relationships, whether it's conversations about what's going on in the world, race, politics, religion, whatever the case is, you have to be very careful. So you need to do your own research.
You do. And ladies and gentlemen, that's seriously what we're talking about, doing your own research and not falling into the cognitive traps, but other people traps that they've set. You understand? So we have to watch out for that. And while we're talking about confirmation biases, I want you guys to think about something. I heard a statement earlier this week that was so monumental. Ask yourself, how do you want people to feel around you? Think about that. How do you want individuals to feel around you? Meaning, do you always have to be right to the point where someone can't say anything contrary to what you believe, or else you're going to debate them to the damn ground? And then so they have to, just to save the relationship, they say, okay, all right, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And I hate to say this, right? Because some people might dig it, some people don't or won't. But when they say the happy wife, happy life type of thing, and they say, well, look, as long as she's happy, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Think about that. And I'm generalizing. Of course, I'm just talking crazy, but think about that. When people get to the point where they're not able to communicate with you anymore, there's a reason. And it's a reason when there's a shift in communication, meaning that you can tell that they're not interacting the way they used to. And so that brings me to this next one, conservatism bias. Okay, conservatism bias. That's when an individual is so hard strong on whatever they believe, they will fight you to the death. They hold on to their to whatever it is that they believe, no matter if the evidence and the truth jumps up and slap them 3 times in the face. They still going to say, look, the sun or the sky is purple all day, 24 hours of the day, no matter how much data, proof, and whatever you have, they will hold on to that. So I ask you to think about those individuals, but think about yourself. Are there things that you're holding on to so tight that you can't receive any other informations, and why? What you think, Camille?
Absolutely. That conservatism really is, we hear about conservatives all the time. They're very traditional people. So those truths that they've grown up with, that they hold tight to, those views, and a lot of times, they're like kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of free enterprise, and so they want to hold on to those things that they think, and the way that they grew up, those values that they hold near and dear to them. They just think that they are inherently right. And they're most of the time not. They don't have any statistical evidence to back it. No research done, no numbers, no nothing. They just feel so strongly about whatever it is that they were told, or that they, went through themselves, or whatever, that they feel like, and it muddles the water for everyone else, because they cannot see through that. And it's really, really important. Disconfirming evidence is super, super powerful in establishing truth. And especially with that. And what that means is, when you have a bunch of people that just believe what you believe, that's all you'll ever see. You have to have evidence that disconfirms what you believe, so that you can set out on a path to seek truth. And that truth is somewhere between your side and my side.
See, it's always 3 sides, right? Yours, mine, and the for real truth, because we can look at the same picture and get 2 totally different perspectives. And keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, it took me a minute to understand this, but those of you out there that watch CNN, cool. But those of you that watch Fox, cool. All right. But I encourage you to watch both, and watch another program or network that doesn't care either or. The truth is the truth. For example, you have BBC. All right. Right. You said you got what now?
I said, or Al Jazeera.
Right. Exactly. Because what happens is we can subconsciously start to regurgitate things that deep down we might believe, but it's still not true. So now we need everybody else to kind of believe what we want, but what we believe, or just communicate with those groups of individuals. Well, we can be wrong the whole damn time. You see what I'm saying? And it takes strength. Don't get me wrong, it takes strength, but it's ultimately worth it because you don't want to fall into groupthink, if that makes sense. You don't want to fall into groupthink. And keep in mind, there's things that we have grown up to learn based off of the individuals that told us this. Is love connected there? So there's no reason why they should lie to us. Okay? Keep that in mind. Big Mama didn't lie to you on purpose because she gave you what she knew. But now here you are at the age of technology. You can take what Big Mama said and do your own research, okay? Because if Big Mama told you something that happened in the 60s and here it is 2020 and you still walking through life based off of what was told to you in the 60s, you're missing so many other things that has disproven that already. So how long are you going to hold on to that? What you think about that, Camille?
It's always important to get an objective view. And how, you heard the terms, you can't see the forest for the trees. When you're in it, our perception is muddled because we're in it. And sometimes it takes an outside person or an outside organization or, media outlet or whatever to show a different side of the two sides that we're arguing over, Exactly, James. Exactly. And I have people like that whose family has been affected and they still refuse to wear a mask. And I think it's just going against the grain. There are some people like that. They don't like rules. They don't like regulations. So no matter what the outcome of their action is, they're still going to hold true. Now, I could be asymptomatic and infect 10 people, 3 of them die, but I didn't. Wasn't my fault, So it's all of those, but getting an objective view is what I was talking about, an outside view, because sometimes other people see things that we can't see because we're in it, and then doing the research. Research is so important. And I see people, the internet is great. You have tons of literature out there, but how you do the research is very important. And I like to read books, and I like to read books that were written in the time, so that I can get a good idea of what it was like then, researching the laws, researching how things have changed, all that to help me to not hold so tightly to the things that I was taught growing up. And so my thought process is a lot different because I've had a lot of interaction with people from all different kinds of cultures and, countries and backgrounds. And so I ask a lot of questions about how they feel and why they feel that way and what brought them to these conclusions so that I can compare those things with mine and then search for the truth about both of our sides and then say, okay, here's, what I found.
Absolutely.
And, yes, you're right in a sense. Yes, I'm right in a sense. But did you know this? Were you aware of this?
Yes. And yes. And ladies and gentlemen, please be mindful of how you talk to people that don't agree with you or to have a different thought process. Because think about how a person could feel if you say, well, look, I don't know why people think this. They stupid.
Yes.
Really? Well, that's the dumbest thing ever. Anybody that think this way is you see, now you're generalizing people, and you may be generalizing and comparing or including a friend, yes. Right? Someone that is just different than you. You guys are from 2 different locations, right? 2 different upbringings, right? Whatever the case it is, but you being so stern and I mean, you're sticking to your guns on this, but then you start to spew out, whoever think this is as dumb as a box of rocks, really?
Yeah.
You get what I mean? So be cognizant of your verbiage when
and let me say this too.
What you believe.
I had a couple of conversations, and I've been doing it a lot, especially around our climate, calling people that I've seen with different Facebook posts or who responded to certain things in a very harsh way or whatever. And I just, strangers and friends, literally strangers, like, would you like to have a conversation? Because I really want to understand how you can come to this conclusion based on all of the stuff that's out there. And there have been people who have contacted me, perfect strangers. And I say, I just really want to understand. I'm not calling you to argue. I'm not calling you to, call you names and say you're stupid. I really want to understand. And in those conversations, when we have them, because I'm not one particular lady, she wanted to put me in my place, check me, little black girl. And she did, and she told me about all this. And so, I said, I just would call her by her name. And at the end, I had to tell her, and I said, look, I'm a grown woman. I asked her how old she was. She told me, and I was like, I'm in my 40s. I said, respect goes both ways.
Yes.
I said, this is what you thought you were going to do. I said, but this is not what happened. I said, but I listened to you, say things about me, a person you don't know. I listened to you talk about my family or whatever, a person that you don't know. I said, and I still was respectful because I wanted to hear the truth, how you really felt, not the truth, but how you really felt and why. And at the end, when we talked and gave her some information and some statistics and things, go back and I want you to do some research. And we even had a laughing moment there, And so I said, I'm gonna call you auntie from now on, And so there are some things that we can still discuss and, some back that came. And also another friend, I saw some things and I was just like, I really want to understand why. And so we were able to have a great conversation, a 3-hour conversation the other day. And it didn't leave. She's not my friend. I still consider her my friend. She had a different viewpoint, but she was open enough and she was honest enough to say, I didn't do the research. Let me go back and look. Can you give me some literature? Can you give me some books that I can read or some different resources so that I can expand my mind and I can make a better informed opinion, because I had no clue about any of that. I never even looked that stuff up. And I'm like, well, you should, and so we back and forth, well, thank you for this. Thank you for that, and so it was a very good conversation, even though we have strongly opposing views. We're still able to keep the friendship at the forefront and agree to try to see both sides and see where we come up after we do some more research and things like that.
Absolutely.
And that's what changes. That's the power in identifying those confirmation biases and being able to present disconfirming information to the other person and then accept disconfirming information for yourself so that you can come together and find truth. That is so powerful.
Yes. You're absolutely right. No, we got you, James. And so that's the deal. And then also ask yourself before going into the rabbit hole, what is my intent? Is my intent to learn, or is my intent to show this person how much more I know than them? Right. Because regardless of how much you know, there's still more to learn. But watch this. This is the key. But then when you start to learn more, or there's an opportunity, when there's an opportunity to learn more, don't shut it down with, well, that's just how I am. Come on now. Come on. You see? Because look, you brought me in this. Now I'm giving you a different perspective.
Right.
So don't shut it down at the door now, because now we're cracking something. Now you're starting to see there's some contradiction here, that there's an opportunity for us both to grow, but we have to both be willing to go in and out of the same door, if that makes sense, right? Because I have to look at what I have and say, okay, why do I have this? What is my intent with this? And how can I expand my thought process with this subject, if that's my goal? Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, here on the Sanity Check, we want to make sure you're A, staying sane, and B, you are growing emotionally, mentally, socially, and physically. But especially when it comes down to the mental and the social part, because we are experiencing something right now that we have never experienced before, and we can fall into social fatigue. meaning that we don't have the normal interaction that we used to have. So our social energy is now getting low. So it's our job and responsibility to balance our information and our engagement. So do you want to go into a situation extremely negative, or go into a situation where you have to be right versus I want to learn to understand?
Yes.
What you think, Camille?
Yes, and there's two I'll say phenomenons, but they call them challenge avoidance and then reinforcement seeking, as undertones to confirmation bias. With challenge avoidance, people want to hold dear to their ideals and beliefs and things like that because they don't want to find out that they're wrong. They don't want to find out that they're wrong.
And they think it's weak too.
And what?
They think that it's weak.
Exactly.
Like, oh, wow. Or they think that they're now inferior.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so people really do avoid it. And so they will hold dear and, true to what they believe, even, when faced with things that are wrong, because they just don't want to feel like they're wrong. People don't like that feeling. But if you're, I'm going to say a smart person, because that's kind of, but if you're a little more mature, you'll understand that, this isn't about being weak or dumb or anything. It gives me a chance to expand my knowledge base. This is something else that I will have, and I can look and see, say, okay, was my thought process right? And if not, then hey, maybe I need to change that. And I need to be as, passionate or energetic about what I learned to be really true than I am for the things that I know that are not right. And I was just holding on to because I didn't want to be wrong. Because I done told somebody that, I was this and I was standing for this. And now I got to go back and say, oh, I was wrong.
Exactly.
And I don't want to be embarrassed.
Exactly. And so there you go. And that makes so much sense. So, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're talking about the confirmation biases and how to avoid these cognitive traps that you set for yourself and other individuals set for you. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then there's times when you can agree with one isolated incident, but based off of who you communicate this to, they may consider you or group you in a certain demographic, if that makes sense, just based off of your belief of this situation. So be ready. It's unfortunate that you have to be ready to defend yourself in certain situations, right? Like, hey, I saw this. I agree with what happened. Okay, cool. But be ready, because an individual is going to say, oh, for real? So you think that, let's say, for example, abortion. It's a crazy topic. Not going to get too deep into it, but I want to use this as an example. If I say, hey, based off of what I've seen and what I've experienced, I agree with abortion. Now, one person will hear just that little sentence, I agree with abortion. They're going to say, oh, look, now you want to kill babies. You see what I'm saying? What are you doing? That is not what I said. Stop it. Oh, and look, if they're murderers and now you're a murderer too. What are you talking about? You see? So it's crazy. We do this to ourselves when we're not prepared for that type of conflict. What you think, Camille?
I actually had that conversation 2 days ago.
Really?
It was about that, and I'm not going to go into it or anything like that. But this person felt very strongly about their views concerning it, whether it's for or against. I'm not going to say that either. But when I had to say, you're factually inaccurate. And here's why. And then there were other people who said, yeah, I don't know if you don't know this, but, and then it kind of got quiet. And then it was, well, I feel like, and it was a shift in this, because now I've been proven that I was wrong. So I'm going to go to a different angle and pretend like it's, and bring it back. And I'm like, this is where I exit the conversation, because now I'm not going to argue semantics and you're changing subjects and things like that. I answered what was at hand. Here's other information. Go back and research it, do whatever, and then I'm pulling out. You know what I mean? And so there are certain things that people have to you have to give them a little bit, it'll strike a chord, and hopefully they'll go back and they will think about and look at, their beliefs when faced with different facts. And I learned a lot of people hold on to things, and I'll just say religious, that sometimes there's not a whole lot of background on it, so we fill it in. And so because of the way that they were taught in church or in whatever sect they're in, they will hold, and they will die with those beliefs.
Hold on to
it because the preacher said, and the preachers, not right. I'll just say not right. I'll leave it at that. And the preacher is just so wrong. Interpretation is wrong, taking things out of context, don't know the historical background of it, and things like that. And it really shapes how people argue these points and things like that. And so you hope that by giving them a different side, giving them a reference, point of reference, that they'll actually go back and maybe challenge. And sometimes it takes something happening to them or their children or their family members for them to get a reality check that this is not how it worked and I was lied to all these years, or whatever. But with all that saying, people will, like Noni said, clause in, and just don't want to let go of what they believe because they don't want to be wrong.
Yes.
They don't want to be wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about, y'all. Sometimes we need those reality checks, but that's why you are on the sanity check. And so with that being said, we're going to take a little pause for the cause for our sponsors, and make sure you stay tuned. We will be right back.
If you're looking to buy or sell anywhere across the 50 states, contact Jamila Seals. Jamila is a realtor with Keller Williams Marquis who exudes credibility, commitment, and determination while serving the Metro East and Scott Air Force Base, Illinois areas. Her warm and friendly approach, combined with unparalleled communication skills and enthusiasm for helping others, allows her to connect and provide clients with the best possible service and experience. There are 3 things she does with and for her clients. First, negotiate deals for you. This means she'll treat your money like it's her money. Second, guide you through a simplified process, which means she'll provide sound advice to ensure you make an informed decision in identifying or choosing the right house for you. And last but not least, creative marketing. She'll provide a cutting-edge marketing plan that's tailor-made for you. Bottom line, she's going to get the job done properly and not let you down. So if you're searching for your new dream home, give Jamila a call today at area code 618-202-8751. Again, that's 618-202-8751.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Sanity Check, and we're talking about confirmation bias, and hopefully you're having a great morning. If this is your first time tuning in and you're on Facebook, make sure you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook so your comments can be posted like this. All right, Big Pink says, Seth, sorry if y'all spoke on this. How much does family and upbringing affect your beliefs? Not wanting to go against the grain, especially with family. Woo! Boy. So that's what we're talking about, y'all. These confirmation biases, not just individuals outside of our clan, if you will, but our own families. And to your point, Pink, we have to be cognizant, and I use that word a lot, but it's another word for being aware of who we are, why we are, and where do we want to be. Also, why do we think the ways that we think? So, in my opinion, the way that we're brought up, it can help in good ways and not so good ways if we don't take our own, take the responsibility of looking forward and deeper into that information, because our view is only going to be as long, if you will, as that information that we received from someone else. And that information may have its own biases, meaning there may be a reason why certain people in your family members, certain people in your family don't go to this specific place in town, okay? Because of one isolated incident that nobody could have avoided. And it happened 30 years ago, you understand? But because they were so hard strong on that, hey, don't go over there. That's not where you need to go, because they go over there, they go kill you, they go, ugh. So now what happens is you are continuing this narrative, and now, like we talked about last week, we're handing down emotions, and now I'm believing it. Now I'm telling my daughter the same thing, and now come to find out, here she is, she's an adult, and just by happenstance she goes there and realizes, wait a minute, I missed out on A, B, and C just because of what somebody said that wasn't true. What you think about that, Camille?
It's right. Family is hard. It's hard to, I don't know if that's me or you, but it's hard to really crack the code on family. But what I learned is sometimes we go in there just like this sanity check, right? Bringing awareness to different issues, giving them scientific names and things like that. It's just not how I feel like you wrong, because that's what we'll do with my family. I learned this and you wrong, whatever. It's helping them understand the background of it, like confirmation bias. If you walk up to a lot of people, they won't know what that is, and we don't approach our family the same way. Like my mom, she's like, I learned a lot. I didn't know it had a name. I didn't know it was this. So it's easier to approach family when you can attach a name, a definition, a this to a certain thing. So it's not just something you went off and you got this and now you think you all this or whatever. No, I'm trying to help you understand, why this could be, or about thought processes and how we can get caught up, because confirmation bias in itself, it can be very bad, but it's very useful to us as well. And I'll just talk briefly about that as I go back. But it's useful in ways where it helps us, our brains, to sort out things and find things really, really quickly, right? So we're looking for a certain thing. And so our brain says, okay, I'm looking for this. So it starts pinpointing. That's why when you ask people, they say, well, I'm gonna describe you, or it's not about race, I'm colorblind. No, I need you to, because I'm not trying to search through 10,000 people looking for a white person instead of you just saying it's a white person. You know what I mean? She has brown hair. It's like medium length and her eyes are kind of tilted, where there's 100,000 people. I need you to help me to filter through. And so I can pinpoint certain things and I know exactly what to look for. And so confirmation bias works in a good way as well. But in these types of situations, it's very important for us to understand how it can work against us. Why do we want to continue to be driven by these ideals and views that don't serve us, that stifle us, instead of being able to really, really act properly, and to do things in a way that bring credit, or to do, that are truthful? Why would we continue to do those, hold dear to those things that are really hurting us? They're not in our best interest. And so when you start to explain the why behind it and things, people are more, your family too. I've learned in my family anyway, and my friends and some other folks, they're more apt to really listen to you instead of it just being feeling driven. Like, I feel like this and y'all not doing this and I, whatever. If you give them the facts behind it, the definitions behind it, they're more apt to really try to understand. Some people just ain't gonna do it. They're gonna hold on to it, they're gonna hold to it because it works for them.
Absolutely.
They don't want to be wrong, or they always want to be right, which is your whole reinforcement thing. They look for information to reinforce the fact that they are right, or that they want to be right. So it doesn't work for everybody, but I'd rather feel like I'm wrong or find that I'm wrong so that I can act in a different way or make decisions that will, be in line with who I am, my morals, my all that kind of stuff, my values, and instead of just being wrong. Just flat out wrong and embarrassing myself and acting a fool over something that is just inherently wrong. So family, hard code to crack. But for me, I've learned with not being judging when you do it. not being judging, because a lot of times we learn something and now we want to get down on our family. You don't know this, and you just learned 5 minutes ago. Throttle back a little bit, help them understand the way that someone helped you understand. So
Right.
that it's not I'm just trying to tear you down type thing. I'm trying to build us up, as a family, so that we can do things differently for the next generations than were done for us.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too. I would also like to add that, and you hit on this earlier, was knowing the difference between fact and fiction, or fact and feeling, if that makes sense. Because what happens is individuals may tell you things based off of how they feel, and they're so convicted, right? Or they have such strong feelings about it. You have to understand too, okay, this person is wanting to talk and they want to, have a good conversation, whatever, but it's not your responsibility to be a cheerleader if there's some things that you do not agree with. You understand? And also be watchful of those traps that she was speaking of earlier, those shortcuts. We can fall in line with that in a negative thought process because we become lazy. Part of those shortcuts is seeing memes on Facebook that isn't true, and then we just share them just because it's A, funny, or B, it's in line with what we already think. Okay, so keep in mind what we are doing and why we're doing it. So ask yourself, okay, is it true? Come on now, right? Is it necessary, and is it nice? Right? Or, am I really doing this to prove a point, or am I just going to be a dirt bag and say something just to get a response? And is it right now? You get what I mean? So we have to watch out for that. Then that brings us to another one. Identifiable victim biases. And Pink, this is kind of what you were talking about and what I was speaking about a little earlier, but we have to make sure when we're talking to individuals, or individuals are talking to us, we need to understand if it's just this person, this situation, or is this the whole statistic and generalize the whole population of individuals that look like you, from where you're from, your age, and everything. Like, you get what I'm saying? Things of that nature. Because if not, they're going to say, well, this always happens to people that look like you, or everybody that look like me, it always happens to me, or always happens to us. What you think about that, Camille?
That's very true. We take our one in there, and let me say this, it's not to minimize it, it's not to invalidate it, but sometimes we take our one situation and we want to apply it to the majority, and statistically it's typically not the majority. Now, there are some things that, we already know are disproportionate to a majority of a group, but didn't happen. So there's tons of people that those things never happened to. And so the other person is often talking to the people that nothing ever happened to. And so it's hard to make that connection. You're so passionate about it because it happened to me, but is it really, what is the probability for the majority of people, but we hold on to it. And it's true because you're passionate about it, because it's your story, it's your life, it's your truth, so trying to not invalidate somebody's experience, but then looking at it statistically is a challenge too. Okay, now I've heard this story. I usually, when people tell me stuff, I go back and I start looking up, and people say, you really be looking at? I'm like, absolutely. Like, because I want to know in the big scheme of things, yes, this happened and I'm sorry for it, but is it really as grand as this person is saying? Or like this one incident that I'm still kind of on the fence about whether it was true or not, or how much of it is conjured up and how much of it is factual. But looking at the bigger picture as well, so that maybe I miss something. Maybe I can sympathize with this person a little bit more, or maybe I can show them, yes, it happened to you, but this doesn't have to run your life, because 99% of people don't experience it. And the likelihood of you, going through that again is slim to none. But your mindset, if you keep looking for the negative because this happened, every time you go, you're expecting it, you're going to find it. You know what I'm saying? Is that attraction, what you look for, you find. You buy a new car like we talked about the other day, all of a sudden now you see 50,000 of the same car. And that's because your awareness is open to that particular thing. And so unconsciously, subconsciously, you're looking for that, especially if you don't know how to check that. So those negative feelings can override things and make you constantly look for the negative and bring you in that. So now it seems so much bigger than it actually may be when you're talking in terms of a demographic or, a particular person, an event or something like that. And so we have to kind of check those things too. So, with confirmation bias, I also want to say, when people like that who you're in these conversations with, they're extremely loud, they're usually dealing with some unsurety. They're not really sure about how right they are. I know it happened to me, but I don't know how it really pertains to everybody else. And so they get real, real loud about it because they're unsure about the facts concerning this thing. And then, I read that the volume is a reflection of the fear that they feel, the insecurities that they feel. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily right. Just because you're loud don't mean you're right. That's what people are like, oh, you just loud and wrong. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we have to be careful about that too. If we can take a step back and say, why am I so passionate about this? Or why am I so loud about this? Is it because there's a fear there, or is it really factual concerning, whatever it is that I'm trying to say or talk about? So, it happens. It happens. So we just have to be careful about those things and make sure that we can say it in a way that, people can understand or see the bigger picture.
Okay. You want to take this on here?
Sure. It says the benefit of living in Oakland is the diversity that's now embedded via gentrification, unfortunately, in communities that were predominantly Black. As those who can see this will see their biases and how they just might be holding them back. So yes, diversity. I grew up in San Diego, so that's home for me. So I kind of get it. It's hard to, especially when we talk about gentrification, people coming in and taking over and feeling like we're losing our culture and our neighborhoods and, raising prices and doing all these things. But there is a beauty in that you do get to see a bigger picture. It's not the same group of people with the same experiences and things like that, which can, if you make it a positive thing, give you an appreciation of other people, other things, or whatever. We want to talk about the gentrification in and of itself, but you can see your biases. You can see the other side. You can see that people maybe not all of them don't act the way that you thought. You might find some friends that don't look like you or act like you or whatever, but you still have a very common ground. So yes, it is diversity is, and that's why we try to push diversity to find, those things that we are more alike in than different, so that we can come together on those terms, maybe understand each other, see each other's and appreciate each other's truths, and then do something for the greater good of the majority of people. Yeah. So I totally understand that, Dandy. Totally understand that.
And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, going into the whole diversity and inclusion, or trying to talk to someone about their biases, I want you guys to keep in mind the bias blind spots.
Yes.
The one that you may have.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So we hit on it a little bit, but to have a functional and effective conversations, we should not be at or position ourselves where we point out everyone else's biases except for our own, because there is no growth there. Right? It's only one-sided. And then, so again, it goes back to the intent. Do you want to be the guru, quote unquote, or the subject matter expert, or do you want to create a space of growth and understanding? Understanding, ladies and gentlemen, goes both ways. Yes. It goes both ways. You have to understand, you have to be willing to understand another person's point of view if you want them to be willing to understand yours, because it's one thing to say, I feel this way about a situation, or someone talks to you, they said, I feel this way about this situation because of my experiences. And that's what I have. And then you in response say, well, oh, I hear you, but the bottom line is da da da. Nah, come on now. It's one thing to hear a person, it's another thing to want to understand it. And I have this conversation with my daughter often. We have to make it, do you hear me or are you listening? Because we can hear white noise all the time. Are you listening to that quote unquote white noise? Or are you really listening to what this person is trying to say? Because it all boils down to empathy, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes for that moment to say, you know what? No, I can get where you're coming from. Oh no, I can understand where you're coming from. And that is creating the bridge of understanding. But if it's, a person is trying to meet you halfway by sharing their experiences, sharing their family values or whatever the case is, and then you can subconsciously block it by saying, well, yeah, I hear you, but see, that but is what is it? That it's saying that you hear them, but you don't really accept what they're trying to tell you. But okay, you can say, oh, I understand. I understand. I would like to add to this from my experiences, and then throw in, what do you think about that? You get what I mean? That's where the space and growth comes to fruition. What you think about that, Camille?
And sometimes, Seth, it takes, you don't have to respond right away. When somebody gives you something, you don't have to give your point of view. You can go home and sit on it for a minute. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of opens a gateway of further communication about whatever it is, say, okay, I went home and I researched that and this is what I found, and here's what I believe and how I understand and, this, and can you kind of help me understand this part of what I found, you know what I mean? And then it creates that dialogue between you guys. And I know a lot of people are talking about, I don't have time to explain. I don't want to do this and this and that. And I'm always like, I always have time to talk. Because if it's going to create an environment of understanding, of mutual respect, then I have the time for that, because that's what we ultimately want to get with. And we want people to understand us, but how can they understand us if we're not willing to communicate? We're not willing to have those conversations, those, whatever discussions, without allowing, our energy to be raised and all this kind of stuff. But just talk about, I'm not trying to argue. I just really want to understand, and then how to ask those questions to dig deeper, to make the other person dig deeper, so that you can both walk away like, oh man, something that challenges my thought process, that helps me to grow, and that maybe makes me more tolerable of a different person or thing or event or whatever the case is. I might not, participate in that, but I understand why they do that. And I'm not going to fight against it because I get it. You know what I mean? It's just not something that I would do personally, but you have a deeper understanding and that empathy for, whatever it is that another person is going through. So the communication has to happen.
And someone had the opportunity and the willingness to teach you.
Exactly. And you have to be willing to be taught, that you don't know everything. And somebody is always going to be able to teach you something.
Right.
You take from that. And oftentimes I hear, people, I hear you, I'm listening to whatever the case might be. I might not act right away, but you will see me try to start doing things, because behavior shifts, they don't happen overnight, so to speak. It takes a little bit of that. I'm going to try this. This is an area where I'm not comfortable with. So now I have to kind of ease in there and figure out, which way is good for me or whatever. And then eventually it may become a part of your everyday, as you continue to try, if that's where your heart really is, as you continue to try to make those changes, it'll be a little bit here and there, and then you'll see a big change.
Right.
So you have to be patient with
you do. You do. And you have to give individuals grace, right? I do believe that you also need to know your audience, okay? Because you may be in a lecture when you are lecturing individuals, or you're doing a briefing, okay? But then you may be in a situation where it's a conversation, All right. Again, it's being willing to understand someone's not personality, but someone's perspective at that time. Now, even based off of what you said, individuals may not change at that moment. And ultimately, and I've said this before, individuals do not wake up to the same alarm clock. So whatever woke you up may not wake up the next person when you think they're supposed to. Chill out and relax and understand again the intent. And then also think about this. Are you trying to create someone else to be like you?
Yes.
Or are you trying to help someone think differently, right? Or just consider something. So the intent is always important. And Danny, like you said, no, it's not, yeah, whatever. But it happens though. It happens, especially when people tell you something. Uh-oh, what's that? Beeping?
Oh, that's beeping.
Oh,
no, sorry.
Okay. So especially when individuals know that it's a chance that there's some holes in whatever they're saying is fact. Yeah, all right, yeah, whatever. All right, whatever. Okay. Now you may have brought this to me, but you did not know where I stood and what information or experiences that I had to bring to this to this conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about confirmation biases and how to avoid cognitive traps that individuals set for you or that you set for yourself or then that you get caught up in. And think about this too, because I want to get this to you too, Camille, but we can limit our circle of influence and also our effectiveness based off of our limited views of things, because you may not know there's an individual out there or individuals that believe the same thing that you believe, but because they don't say it the same way, you will shut them out. Right. And then you may not, and what they may be able to do is help give you material to now when you talk to a different group, now you can articulate it at a different level, but same energy. But if you block that, then you only have a small group of people that you can commune with. So this is how it can, having this confirmation bias, how it can hurt you or prevent your own growth. So what you think? What you got?
Absolutely. We shut out, our allies. We're saying the same thing, just different ways, but because it doesn't sound the same to you, you miss it. You miss it and you miss your opportunity to connect with people. You miss your opportunity to grow. You miss your opportunity to expand, so many things because they didn't confirm it in the way that you caught it right away. And that's why it's so important to take a step back and just, take it in, because we're always thinking about how to respond instead of listening to what is being actually said and be like, oh, so we're saying the same thing. We're just saying it different ways. Pretty much, yes. Okay, well, now that we're on the same page, how do we come together and make this thing work, for us or for other people? But we do that. And I've seen this so many times. I'm like, y'all arguing about the same thing, two sides of the same coin. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it goes back to now. It's not the will to connect. Now it's a battle of wits.
Right. And I want to be right the way that I'm right.
I want to be right. I want to be right the way that I'm right. And I want you to know that I'm right. And I want you to say what I want you to say. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. That means your intent is more control based.
Yes.
See, it's control. You want to control the environment. You want to control the narrative and the conversation. Yeah. Chill out. Just a taint bit, just a little bit, because chances are, watch this, it probably ain't that serious. Yeah. Right? The conversations that you're probably having in your household right now that is all over the place probably is not going to affect nobody else but y'all two. You dig? So really think about what you're doing. If you're not in a position to affect change directly, come on now. Let's look at the whole totality of what is the goal here. What you think?
And I think, I wasn't with it Mary Poppins or whoever, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, or, you attract more bees with honey than vinegar. It's that same thing. You can still be passionate. You can still be very, whatever, but it's your approach that will either shut down people or allow them to open up to the possibility of something else. Even if you're on the same team, a lot of times our approach and the way that we talk and the way that we, whether there's that dominance or that control, it's like, hold on.
Information.
Right. I'm over here. We're on the same team, but you ain't gonna be you can't control what I do. Let me do what I do, say what you gotta say and listen, but you cannot make me do certain things. So we can lose people that way too, because of the need for control, the need to be right, or the need to be whatever, in charge. So
no, that's what it is. Like you said, it's the need to be. And
yes,
we had a conversation. I heard. Where did I hear this from? I forget. But the thing is, like I said before, information without compassion is brutality. What is it that you're really doing to your to the person that you love or that you listen? Time is a resource that you will never get back. You understand? Never. So if you are communicating with an individual, how much time do you want to give, and powerful, loving time that you want to give? Think about how you're coming across. You might be sounding crazy as hell just because you want someone to think what you to walk the way that you want them to walk.
Right.
Be careful, because again, you may just have the same type of same allies, like we were speaking of, like, we have different quote unquote uniforms, but we're going in the same direction.
Yep.
Come on, y'all. We may have a different car. I got a jalopy, okay? But it got gas. You got a Ford, whatever the case it is, but it has gas. And we're going the same way. So think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Think about your conversations and what do you want your overall goal to be? You see? Because you can have that whole battle of the wits, and then you realize now your team isn't with you anymore because you rather fight internally than be unified.
That dominance.
And that dominance can come off so strong. You end up fighting your inside team instead of saying, all right, y'all, look, even though I believe like this, you believe like this, but what's our bottom line? And I'm gonna throw this out there. Hopefully y'all can pick this up. That is an issue with certain demographics. Okay. That's a problem when it comes down to wanting to move in a unified manner. However, watch this. We're fighting against how we're going to move in that direction. What? Listen, what? Watch this. You can drive, skateboard, roller skate, hopscotch, Watusi, right? Moonwalk, as long as you're going in that same direction. I gives a damn. You feel me? But when you have different people, listen, the only way you're going to get to this place is if you got a car like mine. Stop it. The only way you're going to get this information is if you got this intellect like mine. Stop it. Hey, again, I'm saying what I'm saying. Now, if you can dig it, if you can dig it, if you can't dig it, then that's okay, right? But you can put this information in any situation, in any demographics that's having an issue, right? Keep in mind, we're all in the same building, different floors, but understand we're in the same building. What you think, Camille?
Absolutely. Just like you said, not a whole lot is personalities and, I'll just say personalities often get in the way of change, or get in the way of building, or get in the way of connecting and coming together and taking all those things and being the strength of the numbers. And then we break off in all kinds of groups and stuff like that. In terms of confirmation bias, we feel so strongly that we will just overstep people, and we will cut them off. And sometimes it's unintentionally, but that's why we create this awareness, so that you can see how that can happen. You have a thing that you can go back and research and everything like that. You can understand that there are blind spots as well to confirmation bias and to your personality type and your behavior, whether you're a dominant person or an influencer or whatever, steady state, whatever it is, everybody has blind spots. And until you recognize those and understand that just because you are a certain type doesn't mean that anyone is weaker or lesser than you, but is strength in bringing all of those types together, even though there has to be a leader, so to speak, you don't have to be a bully. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got to be a bully, and you ain't got to cut people off at the knees and all this kind of stuff. But you can take the strengths of everybody and come together. And until you understand that, it's still going to be the same thing. We're still going to have the infighting. We're still going to be separated over the stupidest things, instead of understanding that all of us have the same basic desire of life, love, liberty, the right to be human, the right to the freedoms that other people enjoy. And yet we let all of these other little semantics get in the way of the common goal of all of us. And so we have to be very, very careful. And we do have some ways, and we'll talk about on how to really kind of combat the confirmation bias in a sense. So, I don't know, Seth, if you want to start that, or do you want me to go ahead with that one?
Well, here, I can start it, but before I do, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you are following us, okay? It's imperative that you follow us, because we want to make sure that you have the up-to-date information and just build this community up, because it's important. It's important that individuals that need this get this type of information. And again, we're always going to use this, but make sure that if you're on Facebook, that you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. And we're on YouTube as well. So just go to YouTube and put in Sanity Check, and you will see it. If you do, when you do, make sure you subscribe so you can get this no matter where you are. All right, no matter where you are. And this is going to stream there live as well. So, but no, we're getting ready to go into what it is as far as how to avoid these traps. And it's very, very important that we do, and take this information when we're done, and have communications and conversations with individuals that like, and trust, and to enhance your relationship. It's not about being right all the time. It's about wanting to be wise. And how do you be wise? Again, wait. Why am I talking? Ask yourself, what is it that I'm trying to do, and what is my intent for saying what I'm saying? Do I want to get a different perspective, or do I want to let this person know that I have a doctorate in Facebook?
That one.
Come on now.
That one right there.
Or watch this. Or I have a master's in Google.
Right.
Stop it. But anyway, go ahead, Camille.
All right. So there's a few things that you can do to make sure that you don't fall into that cognitive trap of confirmation bias. And the first thing really is to examine the evidence that you have, and it's just not looking at the same evidence that you have, but it is asking yourself, is what I believe based on fact or evidence? Can I support what it is that I believe, with some real statistical data? Some real historical accounts, some real information of things that have happened. People always say, and let me say this too, when I talk about statistics, and I've said it before, they be like, well, what they say about statistics? And I'm like, what they say? Well, statistics, everybody got them. You can't trust them. I'm like, when was the last time you looked up one, or how statistical studies are conducted? And that's important, so that you know which ones you can kind of go in there and you can read and make sure that they're good statistics, rather than just fly by night 20 people type thing, sample sizes and right, or whatever, or there's some confirmation bias in those statistics as well. So anyway, you have to do the research. And then another question that you can ask yourself is there information that confirms what I believe? And typically you will find it. I mean, we're looking for it anyway. So there's always that information that's going to confirm, because we got it from somewhere in the first place, you know, and you need to make sure that, yes, it confirms it, but is it based on fact? Even if it does confirm what I just believe, I don't know where I got that information, is it still based on fact? And then conversely, is there evidence that disproves, challenges what I believe? You know, and is there any information that's missing? A lot of times we have one side or the other, but there's a whole nother side, like Seth keeps saying, you know, what information am I missing? Is there something else? When I read through all of these articles and statistics, is there information did somebody say something or reference something that was important that maybe I need to go back and research because it was not in the information that I had gathered from the two sides? And so that's very, very important, examining the evidence. And those are just some simple ways that you can examine the evidence. And again, is it based on fact, you know, or evidence? Is there information that confirms what I believe? Or is there information that challenges what I believe? And is there any information that is missing that's important for this particular topic? So Seth, what you got on that?
Well, the bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, I will just say, look at what it is that you have as far as information, but be willing to look at the sources.
Yes.
Look at the sources, because look, chances are there's something else that's going to either confirm or deny. But when you do find the right source, don't be mad or start looking for stuff that's in line with what you believe, because guess what? The truth is still there. Hey, look, the truth is still there. It's not going to change, all right, until there's more information. So more information may even further prove that what you believe right now isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So be mindful and be willing to continue to dig yourself. Continue to dig yourself. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the age where information is plentiful and a whole bunch of wrong information is plentiful. So it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to look for the right source, because there's all types of statistics, like you said, out there. But first of all, who's giving them?
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Who's giving them? You may be receiving statistics from people that think like you anyway.
Yes. But here's the key too, Seth. You know, I hear a lot of people that want to have these, I'll say arguments. They argue. I don't really argue. I don't argue. But they'll be like, oh, I read this one article one time.
See,
I'm like, what article? Oh, I don't know. Let me go back and find it. And I'm like, that's a problem right there, because you saw it fly by like one time and you took that as gospel. You know, you can't go and have these conversations with one source. You can't do it. You're going to lose every time. You need to know what that source is. You know, you need to know where you got it from, how credible that source was.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's the other thing. When you go in and research, this is what I found. I'll say this is true for me. And according to all of this, is true. But when you go and you look at the other evidence, you already know what people's arguments are going to be. And you can find the information that confirms or dispels what they believe. And so it's hard for them to argue when you already know what their argument is, and you know the facts behind it and the statistics behind it. And so that happens a lot. And they be like, oh, I didn't know, like, you didn't even know that about your argument. You know, so how are you arguing if you didn't do any research on your side either? And I know more about what you're trying to present than you do. And it arms you, and I'm not saying to confirm all of your stuff, because hopefully you've taken the information and you have compared it to say, okay, am I right or am I wrong? Or when you have these conversations, you can say, you know what, you're absolutely right. I found that when I was looking at X, Y, and Z, but also, did you know this part? There's another part that goes along with it that isn't widely known that should be considered when making decisions about this particular thing. And so that right there, people are like, oh, when you know about their side too, the conversations change, because it's not just my side against your side. It's, I got both of them. Let's look at something else. Maybe there's something that you were missing, because I was missing it too. And here's what I found. So maybe we both need to go back and do some research and have this conversation again. And then we'll say, where are we now? You know, now that you have this information, now that you understand that this is out there as well, how does that change how you feel? If it does. Sometimes it won't, because people will want to hold true to what they believe. Absolutely. They don't want to be wrong. They, want to be right. They don't want to call grandmama a liar. but it gives you a different base. And even though they may be like that with you, they could be having different conversations with other people.
Absolutely.
So,
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right with that. And ladies and gentlemen, I would say that again, and I've said this before, but back in the day when we had encyclopedias, when we had to go look up stuff, right? The internet and the internet, social media has created a sense of laziness. Okay, a sense of laziness in us to the point where we can have a conversation going on and laughing, and not, man, none of it is true, or even a smidget of accuracy is in the story. You get what I mean? So we need to watch out what we're doing in the conversations that we're having, right? Just take 2 seconds. Take 2 seconds and research. It's not going to listen. It's not going to hurt you. It's really not going to hurt you. But I do understand that because I fall victim of it too. If I see something, I like it. Hey, that's what's up. That's what I thought. Wait a minute. It could be wrong. You get what I mean? Yeah, you might have thought that, but it was still wrong. Yeah. So, like, to your point, it's one thing to feel away, but it's another thing to have the sources behind it and the balance. And I will also say this because I'm a huge believer in protecting your energy. Realize when the conversation needs to stop. Realize when it needs to stop. Oh, and hold on, watch this. Take a step back. Realize who you can talk to. Because there's some individuals, no matter what you say, again, like I said earlier, how much evidence you can have the shirt, you can have the proof walking in the house with you, right? Say, hey, how you doing? I'm the proof. And you say, hey, this is the proof that I was talking about. They still won't believe it. So realize before going into the conversation who you're talking to and willing to, I guess, inspire. You understand? But understand that it takes energy. Yes. And some people say, you know what, I'm just tired of doing all this. Okay, well, whatever, balance your energy, but don't put yourself in a situation where you're constantly trying to force people to see the truth that they are not willing to see. Some people will wake up in the morning just like this. Oh yeah, today Thursday. No, it ain't. It's Saturday. No, it's Thursday because I feel like it's Thursday, and that's gonna be all right. Cool. Enjoy your Thursday, then. You got work. You see, you got to be able to do that, balance and hold on and protect y'all energy, family. Please do that because there's some crazy folks out there. Don't be one of them. Yeah. Because if someone is out of line doing something that doesn't make sense, you trying to convince them, you're still in that space because now you don't make sense trying to convince somebody else that they don't make sense. You get what I'm saying? Self-awareness.
You have to know your limits. Like you said in the beginning, you have to know your limits when you go into that, and you have to know when you're in over your head, and you have to be humble enough to take a step back and say, you know what? Done with this conversation. Maybe we'll try again later. Maybe we won't. But for now, it's not productive and I have to walk away. Because like we talked about before, when people get backed in a corner or when you run out of information, people just start fighting, throwing out all kind of stuff, doing all kind of stuff. And it's like, you know what? Time out.
Yeah. And then personal. That's what you need to be aware of.
And you start digging as a person rather than information or lack thereof.
Right. So, right after that, so you may have some facts, a lot of feelings, but then when you realize that your facts was not true, now they say, well, you know what? That's why you ugly and you stupid. What?
It happens.
Hold on. What does it have to do with, the price of cheese? What are you talking about? Or, why cheese spoils? Yeah. Now I'm ugly. You get what I'm saying?
And it happens with grown folks. We ain't talking about no kids. I say it all the time. I've been a kid, all kind of stuff.
Hey, listen, I'm telling you, you see what happens. At this time, I was talking about grown-ups. What happens is, look here, when they get their little feelings hurt, they go back to the medulla oblongata. You get what I'm saying? So now they go back and say, you know what? Now I have to fight. And what did they do when they was little? You know what? You stupid and your mama dumb. What? Why? Really? Well, that's how you feel? That's how you feel right now? Yes. Just because they're hurt. So again, it goes back before. Understand when you have to cut the conversations off because then it will become personal and you don't want to lose that relationship, because ultimately the conversation is not more important than the relationship. Family, please understand that.
Yes. And so if you don't mind, I'm gonna go into another thing, and that is checking for a double standard.
Yep.
We talk about am I judging myself more harshly than I would someone else who is in the same situation, or conversely, am I judging someone else more harshly than I would judge myself? Am I holding them to a higher standard than I currently am at right now for myself? And we see this oftentimes where, like you were just talking about, it's a perfect segue that we go on the attack now, because we ran out of information, or we're mentally depleted or socially depleted or whatever. And so we start attacking. So now am I judging them harder than somebody else? Because you'd be like, oh, no, you couldn't have talked to me like that. Oh, if they would have said X, Y, and Z, but you turn around and you do the same thing to someone else. So you have to make sure that you check for that double standard when having these conversations, when going into these discussions. Am I giving them the level of respect that I want myself, that I'm demanding from them? Am I constantly cutting them off? Am I constantly over talking them? Am I constantly, dominating the conversation and bullying them and not allowing them to say their piece? But when it comes to me, oh, you better sit back and listen. Don't say nothing. Don't, over talk me, or whatever the case may be, because that too will stifle the conversation, stifle the growth, stifle the way forward, the forward, whatever. And we have to make sure that if we demand respect, we're giving the same amount of respect to the person. If it's in a conversation, you can't say you don't deserve the same respect that I want you to give me. No, we're having a conversation. We're two grown people. So make sure that you check for that double standard so that you can have a very effective conversation, or one that continues. You open the dialogue for another conversation. So make sure we don't do that. All right. That we check our own feelings, and that we don't resort to name calling and all this kind of stuff. But then when you say your mama stink, but then they say your mama dumb, now you want to fight somebody. You can't do that. You can't do that.
You know what? Because the thing is that there isn't a space for any growth there. So now you're working in a lower level of intelligence. So, ladies and gentlemen, while we are getting ready to close, I want you to take a second. All right. I want you to take a second and really think about how you want to go throughout this day. Okay, just take a second. Look, it only takes 2 minutes. Only take 2 minutes to say, okay, how do I want to communicate with individuals? First, am I grateful for them? Yes, I am. Do I love them? Yes, I do. Am I always right? Hell no, you ain't always right. Is there an opportunity for me to learn something new today? Watch this.
Always.
Watch this. Here, and now here's the kicker. Am I willing to learn something from a person that I don't like? Whoa. Because those of you that believe in God, I believe that God does that to you. Okay? Give you different information from other individuals to see what you're going to do with it. Are you going to block information that's given to you from an individual you don't like that's still helpful? Think about it. Think about that. Because this is just my belief, y'all. I'm not putting it on nobody else. And look, I don't got no statistics. Okay, look, get off of me. But what I'm saying is, be willing, though. Be willing. And then think about how you want the rest of your weekend to go. Seasons are changing. We ultimately grow, but sometimes we prevent our own maturity levels because of those things. What you think, Camille?
That was the thing that came. That's when you know that you're at a high maturity level and level of humility. When you can listen to someone who disagrees with you or who you may not like or anything, and understand that you can still learn something from them every day. People say, well, this person is in jail. They can't say nothing to me. Oh, they can tell you about how not to get there. They can tell you about some lessons that, they've learned. You can't look at the messenger and just completely ignore the message, because everybody has a message. There's something that you can learn from anybody every day. You know, even if it's just how to laugh at yourself, how to laugh at your problems, you know, or if you just say, you know what, my problems really ain't that great comparatively, you know, you can always learn something. You can learn how you don't want to be. My first supervisor, I always said, you know, I will never be what she was. She was horrible. But I had a lot of lessons, and they weren't just the bad ones. They were the good ones too. That all those things that she tried to keep me doing, you know, it gave me a sense of organization and meticulousness and a lot of things, and, you know, made me research a lot of things because of that particular instant. But I learned, and I take that, and I said she was my best and worst supervisor. Yeah. But it was something to be learned from her, and that has carried me throughout my whole career. So absolutely.
All right. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, we still have loads of information to give you. So therefore, we're going to do a part 2 next week. So make sure you share this and you stay with us and you communicate. And we're going to reach back out to everyone just to go back, you know, through the comments. And we thank you all for being on. We do. And I want you all to make sure you have a great day. Stay sane. Catch us next week at 9:00 a.m. Central, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and we will see you soon. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right.